Today's highlighted coin is the 2026 Jaws of Death.
Into the Jaws of Death, the human cost of war. Chris's new strike, Jaws of Death, forcefully depicts one of the worst aspects of war. It literally devours young men, leaving behind grieving wives, children, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, siblings, neighbors, and friends. Some of those people never fully recover from the death of the young men they loved. Granted, sometimes war is necessary in order to defend one's territory or values, but many are not, and they are started for seemingly frivolous reasons, as was the case of World War I. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, who reigned from 1888 to 1918, was the oldest grandson of England's Queen Victoria, and yet his volatile, competitive, and jealous nature affected his relationship with his uncle, King Edward VII, who was King of England from 1901 to 1910. This petty animosity stretched into the reign of his first cousin, King George V of England. What began as family infighting would eventually envelop the entire civilized world, with Germany standing in direct opposition to England on the battlefield. When the heir to the Austria-Hungary Habsburg Empire, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated in June 28, 1914 in Serbia, Kaiser Wilhelm overreacted, as was his way, and put all of his weight behind the Habsburgs' effort to seek justice for the death of their heir to the throne. And, as was his way, Wilhelm sided with the Habsburgs. And this despite the fact that, unlike his family connection to the King of England, the Kaiser was not related by blood to the Habsburgs. His was a betrayal that would be felt around the world. The Kaiser's military and financial support of the Habsburgs allowed them to attack Serbia just 1 month after the assassination. This was known as the July Crisis, and it allowed the Habsburgs to attack Serbia without concern about Russia's immediate response. But as with many wars, once the initial objective is obtained, the war machine couldn't be easily stopped, and so the war continued to escalate. When Russia finally came to the defense of Serbia, Germany declared war on Russia. This caused England to declare war on Germany after Germany invaded neutral Belgium in order to outflank the French defenses and try to trap the Allied forces. The war would eventually involve more than 30 countries, and although disease accounted for 1/3 of all military deaths, the war killed 10 million soldiers and 10 million civilians. Germany alone lost nearly 2 million soldiers, and the barbarous nature of this war was horrific. Men were literally slaughtered as this was the first large-scale war fought with newly invented weapons of mass destruction including tanks, chemical gas, flamethrowers, combat airplanes, depth chargers, tracer ammunition, and U-boats. Although the issuance of gas masks eventually reduced the casualties, the disfiguring, agonizing, blistering respiratory damage and blindness suffered by soldiers sprayed with poisonous gas resulted in 1.3 million injuries and fatalities. Its use was banned during World War II. The sinking of civilian and merchant ships by submarines was also banned, as were air raid bombings of civilian infrastructure. The devastation to historic European cities and to their citizenry was unfathomable and incalculable. World War I not only slaughtered the best and bravest of each country's young men, but it also annihilated 8 monarchies, some of which had ruled for centuries. Ironically, the two instigators of the war, the Habsburgs and Kaiser Wilhelm's Hohenzollern dynasty, were the oldest and youngest of the 8 monarchies destroyed. The Habsburg dynasty was the oldest, having ruled for 650 years. It would become Czechoslovakia and Hungary after the war. The Hohenzollern dynasty was the youngest and had only been established as an empire in 1871. Other ancient imperial houses destroyed included the Ottoman Empire, which had been in power for 600 years, and later became Turkey, and the Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 300 years. Mankind's history is riddled with hundreds of wars, and some were more horrific than others. European soldiers were not the only ones to have suffered. In 216 BC, the Battle of Cannae, which was between Rome and Carthage, resulted in 60,000 young men killed in a single day. The American Civil War resulted in the deaths of 800,000 young men. That war, fought between the North and South, killed more soldiers than all of America's remaining wars combined. One battle during the Civil War resulted in 53,000 casualties. This took place during the three-day Battle of Gettysburg and resulted in 8,000 dead young men. In another Civil War conflict called the Battle of Antietam, there were 4,000 deaths with 20,000 casualties in just 12 hours. The worst battle of World War II was the Battle of Stalingrad in the Soviet Union, where the total casualties amounted to nearly 2 million killed or wounded. The old adage, war is hell, is absolutely correct. Hellish describes war perfectly. The illustrious history books written by the victors are full of inspiring stories about heroic young men who fought and died defending their tribes, nations, or countries. But those stories never reveal the devastating impact those men's deaths had on their families and communities back home. Yes, their country won the war, and good overcame evil because of their heroic sacrifice. But the loss of those young men's lives had a ripple effect at home that was felt for generations. Lost potential, lost opportunities, lost production, lost leaders, lost influence, lost loves, and the loss of their potential children all had a profoundly negative effect on their hometowns, businesses, churches, and neighborhoods. It is impossible to determine the calamities that resulted from the cessation of family businesses, family farms, and even the end of some families' lineage that occurred when those who were killed failed to return home again. But considering the very nature of men who are willing to risk their lives for others, their loss was profound. Let Chris's new round Jaws of Death remind us that war is a total waste of our best, bravest, and brightest young men, and that a ground war with Iran would be cataclysmic. We simply cannot continue to waste the lives of our very best young men because someday we may run out of them.
Chris Duane issues 2 new proofs each week which are available for a limited time. These proofs come in a presentation box with a certificate of authenticity, as shown here. They are also available in BU Brilliant uncirculated versions, which are only stamped once, and they come in copper as well. You can check out all of Chris's Silver Shield proofs and all things Silver Shield on ChrisDuaneSilverShieldCoins.com.